Good evening and happy Monday, everybody. I am back from my studies in Washington, D.C., and am now in Central Command here in Fargo, North Dakota. Very good to be home. It's consistently less humid, and the traffic is less bad, and the prices at restaurants are more reasonable, and it doesn't smell like weed nearly as often. And I'm close to friends and family. So, there is no place like home. So we're back from our week long hiatus here. So I've just you know anybody who's listened to this show long enough has been able to figure out that I am a traditional Latin Mass enjoyer, and the official position is that I would like to see it have a future in the Catholic Church and in the Eastern Church. And if you've paid any attention at all, you have no doubt noticed that this could be a point of no little contention between Catholics. And so I am. I'm going to wade in here a little bit on a certain part of that debate, and something that you can actually see debated fairly frequently if you pay attention to some of the discourse around that. The um, the argument always goes something like this: argument against the traditional Latin Mass is that we have a need for ecclesial unity, and this is not a facile argument there. If we look at the church's theological tradition and even her canonical tradition, we see that there are three bonds of unity in the church. There's the bond of faith, where we all share the same faith. There's the bond of ecclesial government, that we can all look to the same college of bishops and see that as a source of our unity. And we all celebrate the same sacraments and pray in the same way. Looking to something like the Mass as a locus and a font of unity is not an unnatural thing to do. And so this argument is not entirely spurious, and I think it does need to be taken seriously. So let's take a look, though, at the facts on the ground, how things are actually working out in the year of our Lord 2026, with how we find Catholic parishes all across the country. I can really only speak for the United States of America. Other countries might have something similar. Who knows? Not me. Uh, what are we looking at here? Is the fact that some people would celebrate, according to the 1962 Roman Missal, a serious damage to church unity or not? Let's take a look at what actual unity we have here. And actually, I just happened to notice this comment here from Landworker Gardener of Soul. He says, "I absolutely love the traditional Latin Mass, and also a big fan of the Byzantine liturgy." And well advocated, um, well educated Catholics will know that there are 24 churches within the broader heading of the Catholic Church. Now, 95% of Catholics belong to one of those 24 churches, that being the Roman or the Latin Church. But there are 23 Eastern churches of their own right that have a certain degree of liturgical and disciplinary autonomy under the authority of the Roman Pontiff. And they celebrate a variety of ancient and venerable liturgical usages there. Now, if everything was working out splendidly and the way that things should work out, this wouldn't be that big a problem, because it would be mostly a regionally locked unity. You would have, your Easterns in their various ancestral traditional Eastern territory, and you would have the Latins taking over the rest of the planet. Because what can I say? We're Romans. We're good at conquering. Um, but that's not, the case, and we find ourselves in the same sad situation where there are more Chaldean Catholics in the United States of America than there are in Iraq. And you can go to Detroit. I went to seminary in Detroit, so I know a little bit about this. And you can look at all of the various Chaldean Catholic churches there and their relationship with the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Detroit. And it's a pretty amicable relationship. There's certainly room for jokes, and there's room for maybe a little bit of misunderstanding. If you were to walk into a Chaldean divine liturgy thinking it was going to be either form of the Roman Rite, you'd be in for a rude surprise. It's definitely got that Middle Eastern flavoring to it, but there isn't a real, wound to the unity there. In fact, when I was in Detroit, the Chaldean Catholic seminarians they did seminary with us, and at least in the United States, they had the discipline of celibate clergy, so that made it pretty easy. We didn't have guys trying to bring their wife and kids to the seminary. They actually had a unity of discipline and that with us. So I think that was one thing that made it all work out pretty well. And so the second that somebody brings up this unity argument, most people who are of my mind who think that the traditional Latin Mass should have a place in the future of the church, they'd be like, well, what about the Eastern churches? Are we going to force them to adopt the Roman Missal? It'd always be no, of course not. But there is, especially in our lived American experience here, with overlapping jurisdictions, which, if you read the legal code of canon law stuff, you'll know that that's not an ideal situation, but it actually works out okay. You've got your Maronites, you've got your Byzantines, you've got your Ukrainians, you've got your Chaldeans, got your Syro-Malabar, and everybody just kind of does their own thing. And there's there could be peace within that diversity. Now, maybe that's our American speciality of being able to bring a little bit of everybody from everywhere together. But I think it does work out pretty well. Now, I want to look at the supposed unity of the Roman Rite with the current Roman Missal and the actual, experience of being a Catholic in the 21st century in the United States of America. And do we really have that tight of a unity in the church? Something that can have a profound effect on at least your experience of the church. We won't say anything about, the objective reality of the Mass, but your experience of going to church is the differences in music there. So we could go to some place like the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis. What all will you find on offer for music there? Well, you could go to, the Church of St. Agnes in St. Paul. And some weekends, they'll actually have an old-fashioned orchestral mass. They'll be playing a Mozart or something like that, where the mass is going to take at least an extra hour, half an hour to 40 minutes, just because the Gloria is going to take 12 minutes rather than the typical 2.5 to 3. So you've got that, that highly rarefied, somewhat upper brow experience of the Roman Rite. You could certainly find other places that would have fairly traditional Gregorian chant, just like the Second Vatican Council called for and said had pride of place in the Roman liturgy. You can find plenty of places that would have, what would be rather familiar hymn tunes to most American Catholics, and that could range from some fairly traditional, German four on the floor melodies to, the Breaking Bread classics of my youth, mostly written in the 1970s and 80s. They've got a very folksy or even occasionally Broadway theater feel to them. Then you can go and you can find places that will have African gospel music with a fair amount of clapping on 2 and 4, a little bit more extra solos there, and all the way to praise and worship rock band masses with the guitars. Maybe you have bongos, maybe even have a trap set and a bass guitar there. Now, all of these different types of liturgical music, and I call them liturgical music because they're played during the liturgy, that have a very different effect on the feel of the way that you are experiencing Mass. Certainly the Mozart or the Gregorian chant is going to be targeting your intellect pretty directly, and then all the way down to the gospel and the rock band music. That's going to be trying to get you to sway your body a little bit more. And that's all with the Novus Ordo Mass. That's all with the current edition of the Roman Missal. It has that much flexibility, and our actual lived experience of being a Catholic is pretty well tied up with, going to a new parish and not being quite sure who exactly it is going to be celebrating Mass and what the music's going to be like. And this is the unity. This is the unity that introducing the 1962 Roman Missal is apparently a threat to. Everything from Mozart to contemporary Christian music. But putting in the 1962 Roman Missal is apparently a bridge too far, something that we're not going to countenance there. And I say that, we've got the Eastern churches, there's a diversity there. We've got the different types of music that you might encounter at a Novus Ordo Mass. And that's just assuming that everybody's doing the red and saying the black, that everybody is following the rubrics exactly as they're written down, and they're very flexible in the Novus Ordo Missae. Ask me how I know, such that any priest who wants to can celebrate the Mass correctly. All you have to do is you have to want it. You'll occasionally have a little slip of mind. You'll occasionally, not fully be paying attention to something, but you can consistently celebrate this properly. And that leaves us with kind of the last point of, we could say, liturgical diversity in your American Catholic experience here. The people who just kind of go off the script a little bit, priests who begin to innovate in the liturgy. This can take a variety of forms. Sometimes it's just having little interjections, little asides into the liturgy there that are not a part of the Roman Missal, and they're not called for at that part of Mass. Very often these are humorous and take away from the gravity of the celebration. And no two priests would ever do these the exact same way, because it's not written down in the book. Your liturgical innovations are completely yours. They're complete novelties. They're not anything that I would ever think to adopt there. And that just, you could go from a spectrum to just little asides there, all the way to some really chaotic places. Now, some of the chaos has died down, kind of had its zenith in the 1970s and the 1980s, leveled off there. It is, as rigid young priests like me begin to take over parishes, that stuff just tends to get, tamped down. There's less of a market for it now. But the fact of the matter is that you can go to all sorts of parishes and see all sorts of liturgical practices that are not written down in any of the liturgical books anywhere, and nothing ever happens to the priests who do these things. There has to be a pretty serious infraction, or occasionally a new bishop in town. But oftentimes bishops are shorthanded, and if the priest is not causing too much trouble, then the bishops are kind of like, well, I need to have somebody there saying Mass and hearing confessions, and we're gonna put up with Father Funny for a little bit longer, and I'll just we'll keep praying for vocations and more priests there. And so, to any of my imaginary interlocutors who are enduring this diatribe right now, what liturgical unity are we actually defending right here? It seems like the actual, boots on the ground experience of a Roman Missal in the United States in the year of our Lord 2026 is one of extraordinary diversity. Now, I would take you very seriously. I would take you very seriously if you were like, absolutely, every priest in the world should stick to the Roman Missal, and it is a crime when they begin to innovate against the express wishes of the Second Vatican Council, which says that nobody could, on their own authority, change the liturgy. It's right there in Sacrosanctum Concilium. I've read it. And we all need to get together on music, that we should all be on board with Gregorian chant, just as the Second Vatican Council called for. And if you're of that opinion, that you think that those things are things that we should be unifying around, I could at least take you seriously. But a great many people who say that the 1962 Roman Missal, the traditional Latin Mass, is a threat to church unity. I think they're just using that as a stick to beat people with. And if you're in the mood to beat people with sticks, you will take whatever stick's handy and you will just beat people with them. And it doesn't matter if it happens to put splinters into your own hand. So that's what I think. Let me know if you want to think something else, and maybe we can have a little debate here. We'd all be unified on this stream. You Roman Catholics could have ecclesial unity if you did all the Mass in Church Latin. Well, that's music to my ears, but I'm afraid that day has come and gone. And Landworker says that he's grateful for the diversity of liturgy the Lord has given us. Yeah, I think it's time. Diversity, liturgical diversity. I guess that's what we're doing. And this, Ixnan here, he's got a decent point. People conflating ecclesial unity with liturgical conformity. Yeah. And then apparently there are Pratside worship debates that sound similar. Well, anyway, we've got a few of our friends here on to tell me something. How you doing, Mark?
Good, Father. Good. I wasn't expecting this particular topic, but it's delightful.
I've just been mulling on it too long, and you people have to listen to me because you're my steady audience.
Excellent.
And I can air these things out here, and I air these things out here because this is a not as hallowed a platform as the pulpit is. And all of my trad friends already agree with me. So, I'm looking for a little more.
Well, I think it's a confusion of what the term unity means. It's a very recent, we'll say, problem. And because of the video game reality, which doesn't only happen from video games, but also happens a lot from video games, people just want, I think Christopher's point was excellent. They conflate unity and conformity as though they're the same thing, and really unity, up until maybe last week or something, was all about getting together over something common and not worrying about the differences that didn't affect that common thing. Mm-hmm. And that's no longer true, right? And I think in the materialist frame, what's common needs to be procedure. But this is not even, it's weird, right? It's like, you guys shouldn't be for materialism. You should be the least material people ever. The Catholics, the Protestants, of course, they're all materialistic, but the Catholics should not be having this problem. They should really.
Yeah. And, there's definitely time and place for uniformity and procedure, right? And I think a certain amount of that is useful in liturgy. If the ideal of what the liturgy could be was actually in practice, such that you could go to a Catholic church, say anywhere. We'll even just say anywhere in the Roman Church, and have it be basically the same, even if you don't speak the language. Um, that would be that's a useful thing to pursue. But every time I go and visit somewhere, I notice that like there are just little things different that are just kind of inevitable, right? Like the way that the credence table is arranged, how exactly the duties of the altar servers are distributed, where exactly you sit, what does bringing the collection up look like, and like these are things that don't need to be centrally mandated. You can let kind of the priest on the ground and the legitimate customs of the parish just kind of govern all of that. But definitely some things that we need to be unified on in terms of the way we do prayer.
But yeah, it's weird because some people seem to have this bizarre dichotomy in their heads where they're like, well, things should be governed locally. Okay, right? The only reason to govern things locally is so that they're specific to your local region. And they go,
Yeah.
but we don't like these things, so we want them from on high. And it's like, but you want them governed locally or not? Because it's really, you only get to choose one, really.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
this top-down tyrannical control is not, and it just never happened because it's impractical. Like Rome's a long way away. I don't know if you know this. Kind of
Okay,
far
like
away.
Rome, the Roman Curia has about as many people working for it as the bureaucracy of the state of North Dakota.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like the Vatican is the one that created the robot birds that spy on us all, because as we all know, birds aren't real. Um, that's the FBI and the CIA and the NSA. So they don't have that. So they don't know what's going on. Like, how do they know? I'm just saying. They should at
Yeah,
least
like
get some fake bird technology going, or maybe fake insect technology. And I just don't think they're on it. I think they're falling behind.
I always find the Vatican website to be so charmingly out of date, which probably makes you a little more resilient to denial of service attacks. But like I'm not, that's outside my expertise. If you
It
just
does.
send really tiny, like old school HTML packets, like modern hardware should just be able to spit that out all day.
It does help. It does help. It won't prevent a DDoS, but it does help.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just we're just enduring the liturgy wars here. We'll get
It
through
it
it though.
it's weird. It's just a weird definition of unity that I've never don't understand where people get this. It the I don't know when the education went off the rails, but it's just such a difference between what I learned and what everybody else seems to have learned later. I'm like, what happened? Like, how do you put the world together? Oh, this is why you sound insane. You can't do it. Okay. Fair enough.
But something else that I've been pondering recently is like we got a hierarchy, right? We're all on board with hierarchy. This is a pro hierarchy stream. That's why I'm in the top left, because if you're an English reader or just about any Western language, that's where your eyes start. Sorry, Dot, I know you in Chinese goes backwards. Sorry, Jacob, I know Hebrew does as well, but never mind that. um, yeah, and it's like, what part of the hierarchy needs to be providing which thing, and like we've got a lot of weird, messaging coming out there because, there's a certain sense in which the top of the hierarchy in the United States of America, or even the West in general, is just pressing all this diversity, equality, and inclusion stuff down, and that's where all that messaging has come from. And a lot of people who are beginning to rebel against that because whatever value diversity, equality, and inclusion can have, and there might be a time and a place for that sort of thing. It cannot be the number one thing. Like you cannot organize the world around diversity. That's just chaos. It's just pure chaos there. And so we've got this uncomfortable position of people trying to like be on the bottom of the hierarchy and sending that message out. It's just that's why things don't seem to be working properly right now. Is what's coming from the top Well, there's just a lack of vision, and the children are perishing. So, and then I look at kind of some of the struggles that priests are facing, and I was just reading an article in a periodical that was talking about some of the things that priests are dealing with, and a certain sense of like burnout from administrative load. And it's like, well, for Pete's sake, I'm not saying that the priest shouldn't be involved in the administration of the church, but a lot of the grunt work should be done by somebody else. That's why back in the early church we had deacons. The deacons took care of the finances and the buildings, so that the presbyters could focus on the sacraments and the ministry of the word there. So that's something else I think that might be going wrong there. So we're not getting the top things from the top, and it's just making everything a little crazy. We're all going crazy.
Sounds right.
Mhm. So, when is FargoCon, and what are the details on that, Father Eric?
Well, it's good that you would keep on reminding me, because it's one of those things that you get really excited about. Then you think about actually doing it. You're like, oh no.
Mhm.
I'm just not sure what to make of it, right? Because Mark had his ideas of how to work that out, and trying to make it about forming Catholic leaders to address the meeting crisis. And at that point, like, I've got to interact with a pre-existing structure with that, because there's far more effective pre-existing structures for that. And then, like, you guys wouldn't, I mean, I wouldn't say that you wouldn't be invited, but you wouldn't be marketed to if we do it like that.
Mhm.
That's fine.
Um, so that just kind of changes things around. It goes from me securing a venue, securing speakers, figuring out the logistics of these things, to, okay, how do I use my influence to get the attention of somebody in a leadership position who can wrangle these Catholics together to
Mhm.
focus our attention somewhere. And it's not impossible, but like, we got to try and scale this up a little bit. I'm not going to go straight to the Pope with this. You've got to yeah. It turns out, Mark, you want hierarchy. You want hierarchy, Mark. Are you a fan of hierarchy?
Never heard of it. Doesn't sound equal enough to me.
Okay. All righty then.
You're gonna talk to Castle. He's cultivating contacts for precisely this sort of thing. So yeah.
Mhm.
Good,
Yeah.
good. If he needs a guy with a collar to back him up, I can do that. And if he needs a guy who could squat over 400 pounds, I can do that too. So,
Oh, excellent. Multimodal. I love it.
yeah. So anyway, point about hierarchy is that if you have a hierarchy, you have layers. That's inevitable and a sign that the thing's working properly. So, I'm at the actually closer to the bottom than I am to the top, I think.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
But things get made from the bottom all the time, and you can do it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what we
I
can
think
pull
it's
off.
an easy sell, like with Peterson's popularity and all that not going anywhere because it's stuck. Here's an opportunity to step in and fix it, and fix a particular set of problems, right, around young men and marriage and young women in marriage, right? And
You got to have both.
I don't know. Oh,
You do.
Lord.
You need to have both.
If
It's
you
right
say
there in the
so,
Code of
Father, I
Canon
don't-
Law, Mark. Anybody could read it.
Books. I don't believe books. They're all lies.
The Code of Canon Law is true, or nothing's true.
Wow. It piss off all the Protestants. Excellent.
Oh, All right. Uh, Reading a fascinating book by a young Michigan man who converted from Islam to Orthodoxy. I probably had to move out of Dearborn too. Christ's Protagonist or Logos Dethroned by M.K. Kang. Kang. Huh, okay. That might be like a Indonesian Islam. I think it's Indonesia that's actually the largest by
Yep.
population Muslim majority country, and they don't
Yep.
produce terrorism as far as I can tell. Maybe they do, and it's all local, and then I just don't know about it because
There's a
that
lot.
could happen.
There's a lot local. There might have been some American terrorists in Indonesia before they blew up a federal building in the Midwest or something.
Federal, like the Oklahoma City. Oh, I thought that was homegrown.
Oh no, 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 no,
I mean,
no,
I was 3 when it happened. My parents didn't tell me about it, so
yeah, that gets messy fast. Yeah, just based on the court records and not conspiracy theory stuff. Just what was submitted into a court of law. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, a lot of weird stuff going on there.
yeah. Well, the world just keeps on getting weirder. So we'll.
Also, nobody knows how explosives work, or buildings. Whenever a building collapses, everyone's a physics expert, and of course, they don't actually understand any basic physics at all, which cracks me up because I'm like, this doesn't even require like a physics degree to actually. But I guess if you're dumb, you're dumb. So
Yeah. Well, I don't understand how buildings work. That's why I leave the actual planning and construction of it to somebody else. So
hierarchy.
yeah, sideways hierarchy. The architects they're someplace else.
Yeah, but you can't have that sideways spread be healthy without hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah, and then I don't know. Dr. Peterson was always a fan of talking about multiple hierarchies. So if you're not really all that interested in the priesthood hierarchy, maybe the architecture or the construction management hierarchy would do you well. Which I'm sure there's a way to unify it, but having it be a little bit, it's 3-dimensional, I suppose.
No, they're all Catholic. That's how you unify it. Problem solved. You just put some Christendom on top of that. That holds the multiple hierarchies. Problem solved. Like this worked for thousands of years, or at least 1,500 years or so. Yeah, it worked great.
Well, just remember that Christendom was built by Christians. So if you want it back, Mark.
I deny that your language is useful in this particular. Do you mean Cathodoxy or do you mean something else? Because this Christian term gets bandied about a lot by a lot of people. So
sure. So there were no Protestants before 1600.
If we're referring to pre 1500s or whatever, then.
And then I have a live stream from some months back that talked about how Christendom came to us in the late 4th century with Emperor Theodosius kind of, solidifying that when he made, Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. So that's kind of the origin point there. This thing started somewhere, and all of what led up to that was built by Christians who were, there were a few heretical sects around that. Maybe if you squinted, they'd look Christian, but we could always tell who was really there on account of the bond of unity of ecclesiastical governance, because there were bishops there who could make these decisions. So yeah. So yeah, that's what I mean. When I say Christendom was built by Christians, I'm really thinking of the historical process of them winning over the Roman Empire.
Yeah, it's just the recent usage of the term Christian has become completely.
Well, we can draw boundaries with it, and maybe you don't like the boundaries, Mark, but for us, it's anybody whose baptism we would recognize. And there's ways that we can, it's just the use of the language as I've inherited it. And there's gradations within that, right? So the Orthodox, they actually could be called churches because of their bishops. Yeah, and their valid Eucharist and all of that. We can say that they actually there are Orthodox churches, but if we're being precise with our language, all of the Protestants would be ecclesial communities. They're just kind of church-ish, but they're not fully, you turn the church from the noun into a modifying adjective, which is weaker. And then there's communities that claim Christ. That's kind of your Mormons, your Unitarians, other strange Jehovah's Witnesses, other strange fringe things where it's like, yeah, they claim Christ, but we don't recognize their baptism, and their profession of faith is too. So there's concentric circles to these things.
Cathodoxy for the win. So yes.
Yeah. Well,
the
Catholicism
Cathodox
for the
built
win.
Christendom and maintained Christendom. That is correct.
There wasn't a Catholic Orthodox split then either, although there was a brief schism between Rome and Constantinople, but we patched that one up. So,
And lots of schisms. It was schism between like Rome and freaking France for a while. So
yeah.
3 whole popes at once. It's been crazy.
Yeah, the Western Schism. I'm glad we patched that one up, but it's just a pain to study. It's like, okay, who are these people? And which one was the real Pope? Ah, man.
Yeah, but the stuff.
I'm
with
not sorry
parasitic
to
on
them
it.
at all.
Yeah, those guys are no good. Both
Yeah.
groups. Witch burnings. That's what we need. Witch burnings. I've got lists.
As long as the canonists are running the procedure.
As long as they use real cannons, then yes.
And that's what made the Inquisition great, was the fact that, like, and why witch burnings were just much less common in Catholic countries, because it'd be like, oh, you think so and so's a witch? Okay, well, you just go ahead and write up your libellus, and we'll start to investigate the case. And then everybody gets bored with it, and they just move on. And they're like, we couldn't find enough evidence that this person's a witch, so nothing's going to happen. And then occasionally they would, find witchcraft. They say, okay, you need to stop. And then if they didn't stop, that's when we burned them. Perfectly fair process.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, we're down to 0 witch burnings lately, and I feel like that's part of the problem.
Well, just think about the effect that would have on the environment, Mark.
You don't have to sell me on it, Father. I was already sold on it before.
I walked right into that. All right.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, you totally did. Did you forget who you were talking to? Temporary madness.
Or that's what happens when I go a week without an extra week without talking to you.
Yeah, but you were in Boston. Maybe you're just used to the Boston thing now, because it's a very Boston thing.
The most Boston thing I saw, we have an Uber driver. We're in Cambridge, going from the Museum of Natural History at Harvard to an Italian restaurant on the north
Peabody
side.
Museum. Yeah.
You
went to the Italian restaurant in the North End?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Which one? You didn't go to Dolce Vita, did you?
No, we went to Al Dente.
I don't know that one. Maybe I know that one. Anyway.
It was good. But the most Boston thing I saw was from our Uber driver. And there were 2 different incidents. One of them was that we're in a neighborhood in Cambridge, and there's a stop sign coming up. We're going at it at about 45 miles an hour at least. And somebody, after having stopped, turns into the stop sign while we're still approaching it, necessitating our Uber driver to put his brakes on, and he honks at the guy for a perfectly legal and safe maneuver. I was like, what? And then the second thing I saw is when we got into the North End, we're winding around those little streets that really look like Rome there. They did a good job, a nice touch. There was a car parked, and it just had its flashing lights on, but there was nobody in the car. Our Uber driver's just honking. And then, like, the young lady comes out of the restaurant with a bag of food and then just flips them off as she gets into her car. And then the Uber driver honks again. And it's just like, boy, that's not how things work in Fargo, North Dakota. I'll tell you what. Oh, for shame.
45 in Cambridge. There's no roads in Cambridge where the speed limit's 45, except Route 2, but you weren't near Route 2.
Yeah,
You're at
yeah.
the
No, he
Peabody
was
Museum.
speeding, Mark. That's what was happening. He was speeding.
Yeah,
You know.
that's he was speeding big time. Cambridge is not like. I'm surprised they didn't pull him over, beat the crap out of him, and throw him in prison for a while. But
Well, if there wasn't a police officer to catch him, like I wasn't going to beat him up.
well, that's true too. Cambridge is you never find cops just roaming around Cambridge anymore. You used to when I was like young, but yeah, they don't. Not a lot of cops. Boston, on the other hand, the cops are out, but not in Cambridge. Man, they were out for the freaking tall ships. They were couldn't walk 4 feet without running into cops. I was like, what is happening here? This is the most policed place on the planet.
As long as they weren't being weird about it, it keeps people happy. You know.
No, most of the Boston cops were really at events. They're very good.
Yeah.
The problem is when they have events, they bring all the good cops out, and then the bad cops are patrolling the roads. So if you get caught, yeah, I bet the incidence of contesting tickets goes way up when that happens. Just a guess. Just a guess.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. Enjoyed Boston. Enjoyed Boston. That was a good time.
Hell of a
Definitely,
place. Peabody Museum is awesome. Did you go to the Gardner Museum? Did you get to the Museum of Fine Arts and stuff?
No. We had 2 days, Mark. I mean, choices had to be made. My parents don't have quite the stamina that I do, so you know.
Fair. No, yeah, you needed more than 2 days to do anything in Boston.
Well, a taste was good, and now I've got an idea of what I'd like to go back and do again, or if I ever. I really like the Freedom Trail.
Oh, it's awesome.
But it's like, oh yeah, it's like, you know, I read American Nations. I can understand the theory, you know, but like going into the church where they did all of their revolutionary rabble rousing, it's like, okay, these people did this church. That's different right there.
Yeah.
That is not how. Why would you do it in church? You do it in church.
Well, they did
What do I know?
everything in church. Did you go on the, I forget which, I guess it's, you know, it's one of the big churches where they have the pews with the names on it. Did you do any of
The
those
South
tours?
Church. The
South Church, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
And they told you, right, about they bought those. That's how.
oh
it
yeah, well,
worked.
I already knew about that.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
That was a practice in a few Catholic churches too, but then I think Rome found out about it and said, "Knock it off."
Yeah, of course. It's so funny that the Protestants are this, that, like, look what you guys do. Rome doesn't allow any of that. They put a stop to all that nonsense.
Yeah.
But you gotta have that's the problem. When you get rid of the top end hierarchy, more hierarchy at the bottom. It's just way worse. It's way worse.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You get
Because you don't get rid of it. It's a constant.
yeah,
All the universals are constant. So when you squish them, they just reappear in weird ways. And they're hard to recognize, but yeah.
So just talk to Professor Luigi here. First off, I'm not like 100% certain on the catalog because it's not a problem anymore. I don't actually have to print, but I do think it would be discouraged to do that. And just because the Pope said don't do it doesn't mean that people actually listen to it. But yeah, maybe. I know for a fact that you can't charge entry to a church for mass. Renting the pews.
There was only one church in Ireland that charged us entry fee, but they set up the church specifically for visitors. Like you could tell, like they had to move things around and set it up and all that. But it was only one, and it was cheap. All the Protestant churches, you want to go in there, it's like arm, a leg, firstborn. And they're not their churches, right? They built 0 of them. They stole them from the Catholics because that's And I
Yeah.
just I wouldn't go in. I told Sarah, I'm like, we're not going into a Protestant church and paying the money. That's not happening. There's lots of things I'll do, and that is not a line I will cross. Sorry.
I would do anything for love. Like that.
There's one big, huge, gorgeous church in Dublin, and we couldn't go see it because they were like, yeah, it's $40 or something. I'm like, no,
$40.
no, I'm telling you, man, it was ridiculous. And there were lines to get into some of these churches, and I was like, I am not waiting in line and paying you money, you heathen. Like, go away.
Yeah, yeah. That's too bad. That's too bad. Yeah. Anyway, what else?
Wait, was your Uber driver was he Irish? Come on. Yeah.
Oh, we had multiple Uber drivers. I don't think this guy was.
The one in Cambridge? No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna go test my theory one of these days that all the bad Boston drivers are just Irish. That's it. That's it. Because what they really are is very, very, very good, well-behaved, would not reacclimatize to Irish drivers.
Mhm.
That's because Ireland was not those guys. I was like, wow, because there's two worse places, right? There's Rome, where apparently like you can see videos. It's like, how are these cars not all piled up on one another? How do these people navigate this?
Rome is
Right, and
100% like that.
and there's Mexico. Mexico is the same thing. Mexico City in particular. But like those are the only two places that, you look at it and you're like, well, this is way worse. But of course the drivers are way worse in Connecticut, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and New York City for sure. But
I mean, the sense I get with Rome is that driving is thought of like cooking there, where like this is something that you're going to take pride in, and you're going to do it well. And if you're not going to do it that way, then you probably shouldn't bother, or this is just going to be really, And so there's this one. It's on the I can't remember the full details of it, but it's a big circle. Like it was probably a piazza at one point. And they're like, okay, we got to have one of these things. Everything just kind of goes vaguely, counterclockwise. And it's like, all right. The first time I saw it, I'm like, this is just absolutely lawless,
Yep.
And then the second time I saw it, it's like, okay, no, there are rules here, but nobody's ever written them down.
Yep.
And you probably couldn't. You probably couldn't. But like, there's not smashed up cars and dead bodies everywhere. So, all right, I just won't drive here because I don't know if I can learn those rules.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like that there. Yeah. You can watch videos of it, and it's just like, I don't know how all these cars didn't crash. And there's no, I mean, I'm a pattern guy, and I'm like, I don't see it. I don't know how they're doing it. I got no idea. Yeah. There's places in Paris and in London too that are like that. Where you just look at them and you can just tell there's some unwritten set of rules, and they all get it. And it's very deep, right? It's very deep, sort of like you've got to be a native. You're not going to pick this up on your own, sort of a thing, for sure. It's there's very much that sense, which is nice. It's that little bit of thing that reminds you that the world is not a mechanical machine, and that humans are not universal in that way, right? We're universal in other ways, and it's interesting to watch, and sort of like what you were talking about earlier, like that's just procedural tyranny, right? We want the mass done exactly the same way in every church. It's procedural tyranny. Like, that's a bad thing. But that's what people want in the video game reality world. So
yeah, which is funny because a good video game is going to have some variety in there,
But it's all procedural tyranny. Like a video game is. The only thing that makes it seem like it's not a tyranny is that you can shut it off. But
yeah, I guess if that's what the world was actually like, I would be going nuts. But it's like, I'm going to put this down and I'll walk away and come back, waste some time later.
Well, they can do that with the video game, and that's acceptable. But if you try to get them to do that with an argument, like, oh, just leave the argument, you're obviously getting heated. They flip out. I'm like, you do it all the time with your video game. I don't get it. It's very strange. People are weird, man. Cannot recommend.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It's a good thing there aren't any weird people here.
Oh no, there are, but you know, I don't control who comes in.
Oh,
So
man.
yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't catch a lot of the stream because I was just finishing up chess club. My friend who's in town is leaving for a while. So yeah, I'm sorry. I was just busy at chess.
That's fine. That's fine. If people just want to let the bald guys do all the talking, then that's a standard Monday night for me at this point.
I
I
did have
just
a question, but it's not related
oh,
to the
sure thing,
topic.
sure thing.
So I was curious, Fazer, what your perspective was on data centers.
Yeah, well, we've had data centers for a while. As long as we've had computers, we've had data centers. Now, you're probably thinking in terms of some of the more recent build outs of large data centers that are um, really directed at AI infrastructure, we'll say, are certainly artificial. And part of me's wondering if this isn't all a bubble. And this is not financial advice, right? But boy, is there a lot of money going around there. And I tried to use Notebook LM for my JCL thesis because I was told I needed to incorporate more articles into my thesis. And so I go to Notebook LM. I can put my whole thesis in there. I could put the thesis handbook in there. I could put the School of Canon Law style guide in there, and it did some useful things for me, like, hey, you've got these typos and these inconsistencies. You might, and so there was some utility to this tool. I'm like, hey, can you help me find some articles that might be relevant to my thesis? And it's like, oh, hey, I found you 4 articles. And I was looking, I'm like, man, these are amazing. Like, you've got another one from Hewells that I didn't find. And then oh my gosh, Father Beale wrote on this. That's amazing. And then Cardinal Ghirlanda, this is just going to be wonderful. And then I go and I look up the journals, and the articles are just completely made up. They weren't in there at all.
Really?
Yeah, just
Notebook LM. Wow.
completely made up, and it sounded, and like it gave, the journal, gave the edition, gave the year, gave the page numbers, entirely fictitious. And so I had to,
I've never seen that with the Google ones. That's interesting.
yeah.
Claude does it all the time.
And so, I can't buy RAM for this. That's that's kind of my take on these data centers, because you want to get a couple sticks of RAM for your gaming computer. It's like that'll be $500 when 2 years ago it was 80. It's like a 5-6 fold increase in price right there, and we're doing it for like something like when a 3-year-old lies to me, it knows it's lying. The daggone infernal intelligences, it just like it was so confident, and then it's like filled me with hope that I was going to have these great articles to reference, and then just completely dashed it.
So we're paying the AI to hallucinate, right?
Yeah, like
Well, it's not a computer.
it's a chaotic numbered silicon.
It doesn't follow the principles of computing at all, right? In computing, for a given input, you're supposed to get a stable, reliable, consistent output. And AIs do the opposite of that. It's pretty much guaranteed if you give them a stable input, they're going to give you a random output. I'm like, how did we get here? I haven't found it. I've been lazy about it, but like von Neumann, the guy who invented all this stuff, he had a whole like statement. I know roughly what it is, but I've got to find the quote about what an electronic computer is and what its function is. And just AI can't do any. It's not even that it doesn't. It can't actually do any of that. Like, well, what are we what are we doing? And also, it's so funny. I was having to talk about this before. Those data centers are not going to make any of your AIs any faster. That is smoke and mirrors, my friend. That is a flat out lie. And definitely not what's happening there at all, even a little bit.
I mean,
And
I'm wondering, and like this is just me wondering. It's not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor, but like, am I going to be able to buy a rack of computer hardware in the year of our Lord 2030 that was like 30 grand? Am I going to be able to buy that for 5?
oh yeah, it won't be that much, but yeah.
Yeah, it was like
Always
that's
on the secondary market, this stuff was cheap. So that was years ago. I found out Dell used to make these big blade servers, and the only problem was they were 220 power, so they didn't use house power very well. Of course, I had 220 power, but that's the problem. So they made these big rack servers. They were blade servers. It was a big rack. I think they're 8U by whatever the width of the rack is, and just put blades in them all day long. And you get a fully populated blade rack server back in the day for for $5,000. And I was like, how is this? And they're only like 3 years old. And I'm like, how is this? Because those are 6-7 year lifespans easy. I'm like, how the hell is this possible? I wish I had known that. I'm like, no, I'm glad I didn't. I would have been running a cloud in the basement for sure. There's no, I would have bought one of those, bang, like that, set it right up. I would have had so much fun. I would have had like, 6 full board computers with full memory running all kinds of craziness. It would have been completely out of control. So you can always, even now, you can get stuff on the mic. There are people out there now modding old video cards and just adding memory to them, like all over the place. And
yeah. I mean, I've
relatively
seen
cheap.
videos of that kind of thing, and it's like, oh, that's not me. I don't have nearly the patience or the steadiness of the hands to do that.
I don't know how they do it, right? They take something that is built by a precision soldering machine and they solder it by hand. Some of these people repair the freaking chips by, it's called reballing, where they take the little solder balls
Have you seen
off.
the Russian guy?
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the Russian guy we're talking about. Yeah.
And he puts them back on, and that sometimes fixes it, because sometimes that's the problem. And I'm just like, how are you doing this? Like, this is insane. It's all ship in the bottle type, precision stuff. It's crazy. It's Fabergé egg sort of. It's the modern Fabergé egg problem.
The ship in the bottle thing. This isn't new. It's just a new way of that same extremely patient energy. Oh man, I'm not
Well,
like
and the
that at all.
skill. Like, some people just have that skill. Like, they have a
Yeah.
steady enough hand, they can do precise enough motions, and so yeah, I mean, that we
Not
have
this-
a baseline of skills. They're always going to get used. What they get used for is just going to change based on what's around. Just
Yeah.
seeing more of that.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Oh, do you have to, if you like put more memory in there, do they have to flash a custom BIOS on there as well?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Well, it's pretty
No,
neat
because-
that,
Yeah. Well, first, most of those cards already came with different amounts of memory, and it's actually really cheap to just index the memory and use the number you get. So nobody has a custom. The really old machines do, right? Like, there's
okay.
hard limits. Like, you got an 8-bit machine, 640K, baby. And then to
Mhm.
do anything else, you have to do tricks, right? Usually they're
Mhm.
software tricks. You can do some of them in hardware. But then they moved to memory controllers built into the CPUs. So now it's all virtual anyway, and then it wouldn't matter. But really, all it does is count the modern buses for years and years have just counted the amount of memory, and they just use it.
But
So
if it's a-
usually all you have to do is replace, or sometimes you can just physically piggyback chips. So you can take chips of the same size and put them on the existing chips. And it's like, what? Usually you have to remove them and put bigger ones. But yeah, it's completely nuts. And some of the stuff people are doing, like, there's one project out there where these guys are taking the older server class hardware and they're buying adapters or making adapters for the fan systems and the PCI bus. And you can buy these things relatively cheap, and then you buy all the adapters and stuff, and you get yourself some decent hardware for really short money. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on. I've got a couple of super old cards, but they're 48 gigs a piece though. So, and I've got 2 of them.
So anyway,
So-
Kirk, that was I got myself a little bit distracted there. I guess what I want to see out of AI data centers is no open loop cooling, because that's just wasteful. My mother, you explain that to my mother, be like, well, okay, that's just like running the shower all day, like the Sam Hill you're doing there, And then I think if they really want that much electricity, they should just build their own power plants as well, And like they could set up in Western North Dakota and get all the natural gas they want, and they could just run, or like they could go to Yellowstone and get all the geothermal that they want, and
They would.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
The,
We're
Well,
leading.
I was curious if you think that America should invest in mathematics and physics and computer science education in order to get an edge on Russia and China and end funding to humanities.
Well, I guess I haven't thought about it all that much.
We're winning all that. They're not ahead of us in anything.
Yeah.
Certainly not tech.
Yeah. I'm
But
not
there
sure. I've got other things that I'm worrying about right now. I'd like to. I think what we need to focus on is building people of upright character to face whatever challenges that we have, and that'll be my service to America, is to help prepare people of upright and moral character to do good, and then wherever it is that they are, they'll make things better. So it's kind of a meta solution.
Yeah.
Word, America, meta solution. But,
Thanks. I
well-
saw what you did there.
Well, part of the reason I asked is because I've heard some people say that the way to make AI more efficient is more advanced and exotic math. Because if we have more advanced and exotic math, we can make the algorithms compress data more easily.
No, that is impossible. That doesn't work that way at all. Completely wrong.
I mean, I'd say the way to make them better is to just do what we've always done with these technologies, is to just keep on iterating, keep on prototyping, keep on experimenting, keep on trying things, and eventually somebody's gonna figure things out, right? Like, I've got just on this side of me, I've got 4 LCD panels of various sizes, right? And like, they're so stinking cheap nowadays. Now I know a lot of the smart TVs, they're subsidized by advertising revenue, so that's great. But like, TVs used to just be heavy, bulky, and really dangerous. They've got like exotic capacitors in there that could stop your heart or whatever. And now it's just like TVs are everywhere. Like, poor people have 55-inch TVs. And the sign of wealth is having an 80-inch TV, and all that comes from just the patient work of engineering and iterating,
And no
which
science.
is just
Zero.
and it's like, a lot of it isn't theory; it's tinkerers. Like, a
Yep.
lot of
Yeah.
the useful things we get doesn't come from theory, it comes from tinkerers, and new materials and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, it's just that the people I know who are in the machine learning world say that what's really needed is more abstruse and exotic math. Because if we do that, basically, when you have inputs, they can compress the data more efficiently because they have more tools at their disposal.
No, you compress data, you lose data. They should know that. This is well
Okay.
studied.
Right,
The
like,
more you compress the data, the more you lose. That's why you can run all of these major LLMs, with the exception of, like, I think OpenAI's and Claude stuff, Anthropic stuff. You can run it by compressing the data by reducing the bits. And the thing about that is that you can't apply any kind of math and do that compression without losing the same things. So I could run a bunch of those big LLMs like on my laptop right now, because I have a fairly high-end laptop, but they'll run in small memory footprints. But you compress the bits down, right? You use an 8-bit or 4-bit model instead of whatever bits they're normally encoded in, and that's fine. But it doesn't change anything. And the power in using the cloud models is, all those books they're allegedly destroying, which by the way they're not. That's such a lie. That's such a ridiculous lie. That those aren't in the model. So you can say the model's trained with them all day long, but the data from those is not in the model. So if you want to ask the LLM a question, which maybe you should, please incorporate the findings of this particular book in your research on X. It will do it. If you run it locally, it can't do that because that data is not available to it. That's not a function of the LLM itself. It may be trained on that book, but it doesn't have the text, right? But the cloud ones do, and they're actually super cheap. Like all that stuff's being subsidized. Like when the bubble breaks, no one's going to get a $20 subscription to any AI anymore because they cost way more than that to run.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all being subsidized right now. That'll end soon. Don't worry.
So everybody's just going to have to use the cheap, crappy models if they want to use it for free. Is there going to be a free tier?
There will probably be free tiers just because they use free tiers for training. So like I have a bunch of, if you're an NVIDIA developer, and I've been an NVIDIA developer for, like 25 years or something, whenever they opened the program, I think I hopped on board. So I get all kinds of free models from NVIDIA, free cloud models. They're pretty cool, actually. I've got a couple things. I've got one of my coders plugged into it and stuff. I don't pay anything for that. They're running it all on their cloud for free, and it's slow. I mean, it's not super slow, but it's not as fast as OpenAI stuff or Claude or any of that. And Claude's slow too. Actually, it's not as fast as Gemini. It's freaking ridiculously fast. But I don't care. Like I'm not in this. This is not a race for me. I'm fine if it takes 10 minutes. It doesn't bother me at all. I like taking bathroom breaks so the computer does work. This doesn't bother me.
That's what compiling code in the 90s was like.
Hours and hours more, but yeah, it was more like hours. But yeah, well, that's why I built automation, because I had an automation suite that was mining data, and I ran that for about 1.75 years, and that was mining off a GUI application back before anybody knew how to do such things. I don't know. I mean, a few gigabytes of data, and that's quote compressed. It's not compressed data. It's the output of a bunch of inputs and a bunch of calculations, right? Which is much smaller, of course, than your initial inputs, as it's supposed to be. So, that represents 1.75 years of near 24/7 operation for 2 machines, just full time. So that, that's a hell of a lot of data, right? And then from that, you can, draw a bunch of conclusions. Nowadays, you can do that kind of work in no time, basically, because the way data is stored is different, right? And so things that were only available in a GUI are now available in command line. And once you put something in command line, it can be automated pretty much infinitely and quickly. So, and run in parallel, unless it's a job that can't be parallelized. And now that we have virtualization, it's all over. Like I could spin up, I don't know, probably 15 virtual machines on this crazy laptop, and it wouldn't slow down much, and run 15 of those at once, and they would run a lot quicker, and I'd have my results a lot faster. That's without going GPU. Once you go GPU, everything drops. It gets about 5 times faster roughly if it's GPUable. If it's not GPUable, it doesn't work. But if it's GPUable and all that stuff, I probably could have rewritten it to work with matrix math. Yeah, I think that would have worked. That would have taken a lot of work. And I wasn't using my GPUs for that back then. I was using for something else. So it's wild what you can and can't get away with. But people are already running the free models, and the new trend now is the small computers. So I have a machine in the other room they've got these little brick machines. I don't know if you've seen them.
Mini PCs, yeah.
Yeah, the mini PCs. I couldn't resist. I had to have
a lot of them. They use like high-end laptop chips with more cooling and more power available to them.
Some of them do. Most of them actually use really low-end laptop chips and
Mm.
passive cooling on
Mm.
purpose. So that's what this one does. It has no GPU in it whatsoever, and it runs an LLM right now. I got it to work. I'm using, was it VLLM, I think it's called, which is a really fast, efficient one. And it's just running in the regular memory. And I mean, it's slow, like it's slow. But again, I don't care. I mean, it does what it does in the background. It takes as long as it takes, and it doesn't matter. But like that was nothing to set up. I'm like, oh, this is pretty easy. I think it took me 20 minutes. It's like that's not bad. And
Mhm.
I think most people could have it up and running in under an hour just by following standard instructions. So that I forget what model I was running there. I don't remember off the top of my head, but you can swap models. And what they're doing now is they're building little machines to just run AI now. And if I could have an AI appliance tomorrow, I'd have two of them in here for sure.
An AI appliance.
Oh yeah,
You
they've
mean
got
just like a dedicated AI machine?
yeah, that's what they're building. They're building a ton of them. There's a ton of companies that have them now. And that's all they do. They just run a local AI on them, pre-configured, and it's fine. I mean, they're not super fast. It's if you want super fast, it's totally different. But once you run it locally, it's and if you're doing like automation work, that's perfect. AIs are really good at automation. I mean, you have to be very careful because they don't always do it correctly, but they very quickly give you very good automations in the first run. It's when you're coding that they change stuff on you in the middle of whatever, and they ignore their commands. They don't obey their masters at all. But if you're just doing straight automations, especially if you can one shot the automation, it usually does a really good job, like a stunningly, frighteningly good job. And so, and if you wanted to do like the one thing that I found that was the most useful for Claude, and I did this about a year ago, but I do it occasionally for projects. I'll just tell it to find stuff on my machine that is talking about a certain topic, and either just spit out all the instances where these things appear, or rearrange stuff completely, or give me an index file. Like it'll make an index of your stuff, and I have a lot of stuff, and so it's great for that. We use it all the time. Like I used that when we were making the board game. I used that when we were doing the books, both the books, because I have scattered notes all over the place, and it'll just go through all the notes. I read them all and organize. It's really good at organizing things. Like it's not perfect, but it's well over 85% accurate. And that's enough that from there you can deal with it,
Mhm,
Whereas if
mhm.
I had to find everything myself and memorize it and get it, the problem really is just time. But even if it takes the LLM a long time, it
You could do something else. You can go mow the lawn.
well, and it doesn't lose track because the way its memory works is different, especially if you use certain commands and tell it to do things in a certain way. So, like with code reviews, if you have a large code base, you tell it to code review each file one at a time and keep a master file and put the code review in the master file and then reread the master file at the end and then give you an architectural review and then do another round where it does a full code review based on it adjusts all the little things it made in the moment with the architectural review you told it to do in step 2. And now step 3 is perfect pretty much. That's there's little tricks like that. They're all procedural tricks. So if you add a little bit of procedure to the AIs, they get a lot smarter. But these data centers are not running AI equipment. And the way you can know that for sure is you can look at the amount of production that NVIDIA has, because they own like 85% of that market or something stupid.
Mhm.
And you can realize there's way more data centers than they'll be able to fill, like way more that they're building. It's not even close. They will never reach that production capacity ever. It's not possible. Because they you may think that like Nvidia has their own production facility, but they
Oh,
don't.
the
They share it with
TSMC.
everybody else.
Yeah, they go through TSMC just like everybody else for high-end chips.
Just like Apple, just like Samsung, right? And some Intel stuff goes through TSMC. So, and
Although
yeah,
I
they
heard
have
they're
they have
moving a
some.
lot more of their stuff to their new fabs in Arizona. I just heard that, but they're still got some of it going through TSMC. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's still and they have to package it. I guess they finally got Arizona working, but they had to ship everything back to Taiwan for packaging. So
Oh,
yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I'm like, well, that's weird. Where did they? I think they claimed corporate secret or something, and now shipping is pretty cheap, so I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, but I don't know. And the new thing is that stupid gigafactory nonsense that I don't know if you saw the image of that, like how big that factory is, but it's impossibly large.
is that an Elon
Yeah.
Musk thing? Is this for cars or spaceships or
I don't know what the hell he's doing
for
anymore. I
everything?
have no idea. Batteries,
Well,
steel for the
as Forrest
rocket.
Gump's mother used to say, man only needs so much money and the rest is just for showing off. So,
That's right. Well, and people don't realize that, but yeah, that's just they're all competing too. They were all competing to be the first trillionaire, and now that just like they were all competing to be the first commercial space flight, right? And then Bezos won that round. Elon was pretty pissed off, I hear, right? And now, they're just playing games. We're all taking this stuff way more seriously than they do. That's for sure.
yeah. Yeah. So basically, Mark, if I'm able to summarize what you're thinking about AI development, is that one, NVIDIA it can't possibly sell enough cards to fill up all these data centers. So a
Yep.
lot of them are going to end up being empty, or are they going to be used for something else?
No, they're all for the flock data.
The flock data.
5G is worthless for cell phones. The garbage. It's trash. Complete trash. You look at the specs on it and you're like, what problem are you trying to solve with these specs, right? You work backwards. Will you have a high data flow,
But can't go through a piece of paper.
very short bandwidth system, and you're putting all the antennas along the highways? I wonder what you could possibly be, right? And then you look at, now I happen to know somebody that works at Toyota. So I know what they're doing, right? And they're in a competition with Ford and Chevy, and so all the car companies have this competition going at the corporate level that nobody knows about, right? And he told me how much data they're actually sending telemetry from the cars, and I was like, "Are you just? Is this synthetic data? How can a car even have that much data?" And it does. Like, I understand that, but also, holy cats, you're sending how much data? And it's like, oh, that's what the 5G is for, because it's useless for cell phones. It's completely pointless to use 5G on a cell phone. It's too short range. The bandwidth is much, much higher. But it like you're not using 4G bandwidth anyway on your phone. Like you're not doing that. That's not
Yeah.
possible. So
Yeah, for like pulling up even a video,
3G
the
was
4G.
fine for all that.
Yeah.
4K
So-
video, 3G can do 4K video all day long.
So your Toyota car is sending all this data to Toyota.
Yeah.
To train self-driving models, or
Now they're doing lots of different things with it. Like they've got all kinds of goofy, some of which are hysterically, obviously stupid. They've got all kinds of goofy projects. There was one project that they were trying to make it so that when you walked up to the car, it knew it was you, and it would unlock and open the car automatically, which is obviously infeasible. These sorts of things have been tried before. This is a stupid idea, and it's basically a mathematically impossible problem to solve, which you would think they would know, but no one ever reads any of the white papers anyway. So everybody's like, more math. I'm like, they're not even reading the math they have. Why are we wasting our time with more? And so they had to scrap that. So I know that got scrapped at least at Toyota, but there's all kinds of like you hear about these projects and you're like, no one's actually dumb enough to think that they can get away with this, are they? And then I was like, no, that they are. Because I was at Nokia when Microsoft, before Microsoft bought them, And, like some of the stuff they were doing, I was just like, you guys can't really be this dumb, can you? And they were exactly that dumb. They had no idea what they were doing. They would do goofy things, and but they didn't even know they were going to be taken over by Microsoft. I was there like, you guys know you're going to get bought by Microsoft, right? They're like, no, that's impossible. And I'm like, you're going to be bought by Microsoft within the next 2 years. And of course, I was right, because that was the clearest pattern in tech. I don't know how anybody.
Everybody gets bought by Microsoft or Google, or but you either die a hero or live long enough to get bought by Microsoft.
They would send executives out to deliberately to get hired at these companies to basically assess them and prepare them to be taken over by Borgsoft. So it was well known in the industry. It's just nobody at Nokia had any clue. And I was like, how do you not know about this? But that's the nature of these things. Like, the industry's huge, and people can't, in the same way that, people were competing over space flight, and they were competing over self-driving cars, and Elon won that. No, there is no second place. I mean, no one's even close. So they're competing over Flock. They're right, and they're all trying to get government money.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you're looking at Toyota using high bandwidth 5G networks to collect data, and then you're also looking at these newfangled camera systems that are tracking everything, and that needs the 5G.
Yep.
And then, I mean, like, storage prices have also, gone through the roof. Even like hard drive disks, not just solid state storage. And so I suppose with all this surveillance data,
AI doesn't need that. AI doesn't need more disk at
Yeah.
all.
yeah,
At all. That doesn't help AI one little lick.
yeah,
What's
it's
that for?
the RAM, the AIs need the RAM, but the
Needs
Yeah.
fast RAM. It needs high bandwidth,
DRAM.
low latency RAM. That's the way to make it faster.
mhm.
So there's a whole companies, focused on processors. And I'm like, you guys what are you doing? You're wasting your time. You're not making, well, first of all, you're not making it faster than NVIDIA ever, because they have a bunch of patents protecting their work. But that's not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is how much memory you can access. That's why the Mac, so Apple's got a big problem, right? They had to reprice everything because they don't pay memory prices. All their memories on die. So the CPU and the memory are the same physical package.
Yeah.
So however many of those they've ordered, they're not subject to the memory crunch.
Mhm.
So, why did they reprice? Well, everybody bought Macs to run AIs on,
Mhm.
and good on. I would have. I don't have any money.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
would've
a
bought one.
fabulous performance on those, and you can, but you could even reallocate, like CPU gets this much, GPU gets this much,
Yeah.
and so you could be like, yeah, we're just gonna have just enough CPU to keep the operating system running, and then everything else, the AI is gonna, and then you'd have a big, very, very fast memory pool, because it's right
Yeah, you
there.
just have a very big memory pool. Well, it's actually not that fast, but as it turns out, but that's a different problem. They're using old memory interconnects and stuff, so their memory latency is actually relatively high compared to DDR 17,000 or whatever iteration they're up to now.
Mhm.
But more memory is so much better for the AI because you can run the higher.
You just,
bitrate
and
models.
it's basically, you just have more parameters in your model, right?
Well, there's two things that affect model size. One is parameters, and the other is the bit compression. So you
Okay.
can keep the parameters and grab a 4-bit version of the same model, right? But then you lose a bunch of fidelity on a bunch of stuff. And it's actually, I mean, it might be out there. I don't study this stuff because I was studying it before there were LLMs and the stuff was big. So I don't really want to keep up with the state of the art. It's crazy. But there's some kind of trade-off there, and I don't know. I don't think they know. I'm suspicious that they actually know what you lose with the bit rate, but it definitely doesn't perform as well. We know that, but I don't know that they would quantify or classify what doesn't perform well as you take it from 16 to 8 to 4 bits. Or the other thing you can do is bring the parameters down and keep the bit rate the same. And so the new thing in AI is what's called mixture of experts, the MOE, which was always going to be the winning answer. I don't know why they took this stupid detour and tried to cram everything into one. That was them being really dumb and knowing better, or had they read the white papers, they would have known better, right? We already knew what MOE is. An old term. That's way back. I think Hinton did that back in the 90s. So I don't know why they moved away from it. Yeah, well, almost. I got to get that up and running one of these days. I'll get out there. That reduces the parameterization in the moment. It creates a little bit more memory contention when they switch, but those models will run on standard. Like I could run a bunch of those on the standard hardware that I have here, and they would run just fine on single GPU systems. And they're amazing. Like their performance is they're punching way above their weight.
So would this be, so you've got like different experts? Is there something like we've trained all of these models differently, or like on different sets of data, and then there's something that calls each model to do their thing when it's needed?
That's a rough analog. I think what they're technically doing is they're shutting off. Well, they're actually, I don't even think they're shutting off. I think they load and unload certain portions of the neural net based on the input. So what I think they're doing is they're running an embedder first. They're running that through the vector database, and then based on the vector database, they know which sub neural nets to spin up. Basically, it's all one big neural net, but they're loading different aspects of it, and then they're feeding those parameters in, because some like vision models obviously need all the parameters in the world, but your audio ones don't, and your written text ones need nothing. So yeah, it just even the machine, the little mini PC I have. This is so funny. So I had the coder code up the VLM stuff, and it worked okay, but I was like, no, it's failing. And one of the ways you get these to work better is you use an encoding model on the front end. And so now it runs 2 neural nets on it. So it runs the encoder first, and then the encoded data gets fed into the big model. And you can do that with a load unload. I don't think this one loads and unloads, but I had the AI write all the code. I don't want to write it. I don't know. This is all API garbage work. It's not. You're not writing any code, right? You're just gluing code together. So yeah, it wrote it all, and that actually sped it up quite a bit, which is counterintuitive, but it speeds it up quite a bit. And then your tokens are pre-compressed going to the new models, and if you pre-compress the tokens, then so you're using a smaller model to basically pre-compress the token data by running it through the vector database with a cheaper model, an easier model. That the embedding models are tiny. They're super small. They'll fit on there. You can run one on a Raspberry Pi. They're nothing. So you do that, and then that makes it more efficient to run the larger model, because it doesn't have to accept raw data. It doesn't have to do the translation into tokens. So you have basically you have it's effectively a tokenizer.
All right,
it's a
so
little more
Kurt,
complicated.
I probably understood about 30% of that, but the fact of the matter is that that's how you get progress in these sorts of things. Is you have people come up with a bright idea, hack it through, and you get better results with the same materials. So that's what we mean by just kind of iterating by engineering. And the problem with that is that it's really boring. Like you're not getting a Veritasium video that's going to have like your name and face on that. Nobody really cares, but it's like it makes life better. That's how our radio's shrunk down, our TVs have shrunk down, and like I know cars have all sorts of things that they're going on right now, but they last longer, and they're very good at keeping people alive in car accidents. So there's an amazing video. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, of you've got like a 1955 Buick tank, versus like a 1998 like Honda Civic or something like that, right? And they put these two cars in a head-on collision, and the 98 Honda Civic just smashes right through the 1950s car while being like half the weight, just
Yeah.
because they iterated on the engineering. And it's like, oh, the market wants safe cars because car accidents happen, and people will, if your car gets a good safety, and plus like engineers probably just want to do that because they drive in cars too. So they just figured out how to make a really light, really strong box to protect the people on the inside there. So yeah. Now I'm still quite curious about all of this Flocknote stuff. Is that like a Palantir thing, or is it some company I've never heard of?
I mean, I'm sure Palantir is doing most of it because they've got the alleged
They got
tech
the-
that does it. But
I
It's a
met a
fool's errand.
Palantir. I don't care. I don't know if I'm accenting the correct syllable on that, but I met a software engineer who worked for Palantir this summer. He was
Oh. Cool.
he didn't talk much about work. He's like, yeah, sometimes I gotta go into a special room when we're working on classified intel. And it's like, all right, that's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's big in Washington D.C. if you can believe it, and like Arlington especially.
They
I think all the important
classify
stuff
everything.
happens. Yeah, I think all the important stuff's in Arlington.
Yeah, most of the classified data is supremely uninteresting and wouldn't help you much. But
Just like most people's confessions, like it's not that interesting.
yeah, the military just classifies things by default on certain projects, and so a lot of stuff ends up being classified that doesn't need to be. But it's fun if you've been in classified briefings. Sometimes everyone there is just like, "Really, this is what are we doing?" Just like corporate meetings. I remember the one Nokia corporate meeting. Why they made me go, I don't know. I wasn't an employee; I was a contractor. But they're like, "Oh, it's an all hands. You got to go." I'm like, "All right, well, whatever." I mean, there's computers to be monitored, but if you want me to go downstairs and listen to the blowhard VPs, that's fine too. I get paid by the hour, so it's fine. They're sitting there like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. All right, we need to turn the microphone on these cell phones just for 2 or 3 seconds, randomly throughout the day, and combine that with the location data so we know what they were listening to when they were in a particular spot. And I was like, how illegal is this exactly? Like, I'm just sitting there like, you guys are not gonna get away with this. Like, they're gonna find out you're doing this, and your customers are gonna crucify you. Now, Nokia's out of the cell phone business, by the way, in case you didn't know. So they don't. When I was there, it was wild. They had everything. They had their own Play Store competitor. They had their own Hadoop competitor, which is the original search engine backend technology. They had their own. They had their own like networking equipment. They had like their own everything. They had their own cell phones that were way out of the Nokia N9. I missed that thing every day. It was awesome. It was way better than anything you could buy today. Way better. They had their own everything. They had their own like language on the phones and everything. It was nuts. Their own programming language for the phones. It was completely insane. They duplicated absolutely everything for no good effect. And they lost it all. They lost the whole stupid thing. So it's very sad. But they were nuts.
I just missed that invulnerable injection molded plastic. That was good times right there. So yeah, we'll just we'll pour one out. Pour one out for Nokia tonight. It was made out of the same plastic that the N64 was made out of. Just absolutely indestructible.
Well, the N9s were advanced Gorilla Glass and some kind of metal. They were not plastic phones because that was their high end. And the only reason why I had one is because they just issued everybody one that worked there. And that was your work phone. Like out of the box. So they were, basically it's funny accounting, right? They're like, they have to buy a phone for every employee, and that comes with an AT&T account and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, fair enough. But the thing was absolutely good. It was so unbelievably fast. And this was, I don't know how many years ago. It was a long ass time ago. And they were unreal.
I
They
mean,
were so gorgeous.
don't hardware engineers say that software engineers are undoing 40 years of advancement in hardware technology just with the code they're writing?
You haven't met any hardware engineers, they don't even notice. But that is true. Just hardware engineers don't know or care to just do their thing, and they're completely antisocial. They don't go to parties with each other even and say things like that. But yes, that is certainly true. Um, yeah, and Nokia was going through this time where I think they had 3 operating systems for the phone, and some people will say, well, they didn't go with Android, and that's why they lost. That's not why they lost. They had bigger structural problems, and they were going to get booked by Microsoft one way or the other.
Yeah, and that, like, boy, that points us back to wrong things coming out of the top of the hierarchy, right? Like, if the leadership's like, okay, we're getting bought by Microsoft, we need to prepare for that.
They didn't even know.
Yeah,
But they
that-
have so that I actually saw a video about this recently. It was just funny because it was talking about the time I was there. I didn't know that. I didn't realize. I mean, thinking back, it should have been obvious, but like I was busy. I was turning down 10 jobs a week, right? I was turning down 10 jobs a week back then. I had my pick of wherever I wanted to work in Boston, right? Or really anywhere, but I just didn't want to travel. So they had already lost it because the CEO before this guy was, I think it was the CEO before the Microsoft guy was not Finnish. He was not from Finland. And so as with most, because if you can watch, some of these are quite accurate. Some of them are not. That one was not particularly accurate. I mean, everything he said was right, but his reasons why they failed are actually quite wrong. The companies usually fail, and there's a few exceptions, when the person that made it big, not necessarily the first CEO or the founder, leaves. It's extremely consistent. It's not 100%, but it's like 98%. It's like a lot of these companies fail on the force of one person being missing.
Yeah, sometimes they can, like, it seems like Tim Cook was able to pick up the torch from Steve Jobs.
Except he didn't release anything.
Yeah, but like
he was running on the fumes of the existing plant. So in that case, everybody who has things to do on the existing plan is going to look good. But the minute the existing plan goes away, that
they can't adapt anymore. They can't adapt.
That company's
anymore.
Gone.
Yeah.
Gone. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Right. Because he's just a consistent, delivering a new iPhone every year. But
they had a plan. It was already, this is what people don't understand when you're mapping those things out. So like their chip project, you can look this one up. There's I forget who does some of these videos that I watch, but there's a fairly good one on the Apple chip progression. Like those are 30-year design plans. Those are 30-year design plans where they've got, we're going to do this, and then we're going to shrink to this size, and then we're going to change this, and then we're going to this, right? Over and over again. And when you have hundreds of millions of dollars, you can think and plan at that scale. When you're a small company, you can't do anything like that, right? And usually if you try, you screw up because the guys who are innovators are not good long-term thinkers. There's a few exceptions, but they're super rare. You shouldn't even try to predict that they exist. That'll just screw you up. So what happens is once the momentum is built, now you operate a different scale. And once you operate a different scale, everything changes. And the problem with Apple is they rely on making, we'll say, significant technical changes and marketing them a certain way to a certain high dollar client. And you just can't keep up that pace forever.
Right.
And when Steve Jobs was in charge, what he kept doing was introducing new products, culminating in the iPhone. But that wasn't his first new product.
Right.
And a lot of
the
that,
iPad, the iPod.
The iPods were huge.
Yeah, no, I had one.
Yeah, I had one. Yeah, it got stolen out of my car in Cambridge. Figures. But yeah, it total mess, right? Total mess. So that was That was the problem, is that they can't do that anymore. They don't have any innovators. So they're not going to be able to like introduce a new tech. So at some point that's going to run out.
Mhm.
And I don't think Cook changed anything. I think he was just running on fumes. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see how long the new guy can run it on fumes, because there's momentum there. So things don't die right away, but no one understands momentum. So especially at scale, momentum at scale is really funny. It's just very non-intuitive to normal people.
Yeah, I mean, would it be something like the market can remain irrational longer than you can stay solvent?
Yeah, because the market's bigger than you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The price of gold, actually, if you map it out, the price of gold remained uncorrelated to all other factors for 100 straight years. So if you're hoping gold's going to save you, I wouldn't be hoping that. I think it was Taleb that pointed that out. Um, yeah, and and everyone's just rediscovering things. The Taleb interview I just watched, he was talking about the books as physical objects as opposed to electronic books that don't work the same way.
Yeah, yeah. I try to reserve my Kindle for books of passing value. If there's something I'm really going to want to have a physical copy of, which means I do need to invest in a good copy of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, because I currently only have a digital version of that. And
Oh,
I understand. You don't need to say anything else. So that's um, yeah.
well, he was writing notes in it, and it's the Yeoman podcast, which I had never heard of. They've got like, this is episode 39 or so, is the latest episode.
Mhm.
And it was just interesting because Taleb was talking about, yeah, you write your notes in the front of the book, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty much how it's done. And he and the guy doing the podcast, doing the interview, was like, yeah, I bought a Kindle, I went all in on electronic everything. I don't remember any of those books. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yep, that's
Mhm.
exactly what happens. You won't remember any of that material.
Mhm.
You got to
Mhm.
turn the page, baby. You need that
That's
physicality.
that's that's like 100%. I noticed that when I was in seminary. I bought some textbooks on my Kindle, and I would get the class, and we were supposed to discuss it. And I'm just like, it's like I knew I read it, and like I remember understanding it, but only little bits of it get retained in there. Whereas when you got that physical book, it's just different. So
Well, that's the Memory Palace stuff, which I'm, a relative fan of, but I read like Moonwalking with Einstein, which is an excellent book. What I realized was I do that better and differently, and it's way better. Right. Now I can't do the 52 card deck thing or memorize 2 or 3 deck orders or something like that, but I never need to. So it's like why do I care about that? Right. And so part of that is the physicality of the memories you're laying down. Right. And so when you think about, it's so weird, I was thinking about this morning. Um, when you think about muscle memory, that's just cheaper memory than storing it, let's say, propositionally. It's much cheaper, and there's no translation, right? You just react. That's what you train when you train martial arts. That's what you train. You train pure muscle memory, so you don't have to rationalize it or think about it, and that actually has a huge advantage. And we're doing away with that by putting everything digital. That's the issue.
yeah, yeah, and it's a funny thing to notice, especially with like I celebrated the traditional Latin Mass. We were going to come back to that eventually, but the sometimes there's certain parts of the traditional Latin Mass where I have the text memorized because of the gesture that you make at the same time. So yeah,
Yeah.
ostiam puram, ostiam sactam, ostiam immaculatam, panem sanctum vitae aeterna, calicem salutis perpetuae. Because it's like you do those 3 crosses over both, and then one, and then the other, and it's just boom, all of that locks in together. And then the doxology at the end of the canon, per ipsum et cum ipso et per ipso est tibi Deo Patria omnipotenti in unitate Spiritus Sancti omnis honor et gloria. It's just like because you do those motions with those words at the same time. It just gets into you real easy. Whereas there are other parts where it's a little bit more abstract. Yeah, yeah, like the creed, where it's just, it's just the creed, and there's ad incarnatus est Spiritu Sancto ex Maria Virgine et homo factus est. That's just when you kneel, and that's how I've got that memorized. But the rest of I always read that.
It's almost like the church knew what it was doing and had these answers long before science was even a thought in anyone's tiny mind. Almost, Father.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if we're bringing things back on FargoCon, is it perhaps is Mark's idea for this perhaps a little bit too ambitious for the first one?
Yeah, yeah.
Or-
Well, that's the main problem, that, like, the reason why there hasn't been an announcement and a planning meeting and anything like that is, like, I don't quite know what to do with it yet, and so I'm like, Mark, what should
Well,
I
I
do with
thought
this?
there
And
was
he
an
had-
idea that you would have our friend Ted here come up with a topic for the thing and do something that way. There was like a simple idea like that floating around somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just haven't talked to Ted in a while, so like,
Well, you
it'd be
should
real
talk to
easy.
Ted
Like,
every
there'd
day.
be really easy ways to do it at, like, a small scale, little talks, like that. Like, we just go to a Catholic retreat house for that, and, like, I know how to do that, and it'd be a great time. It'd be more like what Ted did. Yeah.
Ted should do that again. Put him under obedience, Father. Make him do it again. I had so much fun. That was great. Great time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the problem with me putting him under obedience is that I don't have any authority over him. So
He doesn't know that. He'll be fine.
I think he knows the difference.
He won't even notice.
He knows the difference between Arkansas and North Dakota, though. That one's hard to know to miss.
He won't even notice, I assure you. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the FargoCon.
Well, it's because it hasn't happened yet. These two are trying to get me onto.
It's more than us. Do you want us to have everybody dogpile on? Because we can do that.
No, I don't think that'll help. I think the two of you are it's consistent pressure. It's not the amount that you need to be looking for here.
Oh, I'm just offering if you need more help. We have more troops.
Okay, do I still sound like a jet plane over here, or is
So
it?
it's just when you're typing.
Oh yeah, I clickety clack because I have a very clickety clackety keyboard and I type very loud and fast.
Yeah, your mechanical keyboard's just not playing nice with the other kids in the sandbox.
No, okay, I will mute myself when I am typing then because I like the feeling of clickety clackety keyboards. It makes me feel like a leaf hacker. So, and I have a electronic piano that plays like a weighted piano for the same reason. The feeling of that resistance back at me, that tactical feedback. This is why I hate virtual reality games. By the way, there's like no haptic feedback, and I'm like, why am I standing here swinging into the wind, swinging at nothing when I can just run outside and grab a stick, like a literal stick, and do the same thing, and then I can imagine myself, being a Jedi warrior or whatever, for free, right? Like, why am I paying like a couple, however much money the peripheral is, to swing something that doesn't give me any force feedback when I can just run outside and grab a stick for free? Like, this makes no sense to me. Like, all the stupid kids begging their parents to get them the Wii are like, why did you do that to yourself?
Because the Wii was really, really popular.
And it had haptic feedback. The Wii has haptic feedback. So
Yeah, but we didn't have haptic feedback unless you
did.
accidentally let go of it and threw
No,
it
it-
at somebody's
it-
head.
No, it has
Well,
haptic feedback.
Okay. So, like, if you mean by haptic feedback, the little vibrations,
Yeah.
okay, that
Yeah,
counts
but
as
there's-
haptic feedback. But,
but,
there's
like,
no
you-
there's
you-
no gravity to these things.
No, but like if
Um,
you get into it, like in Link, in one of the Link Skyward Sword, I think, where you're actually wielding the sword. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, finally remembered. You can get into sword duels with people, and you're like parrying and getting into sword locks. There's a little bit of a ting feeling in your head from the little buzzy thing. But when
Yeah,
you're in the
don't do
sword
that.
lock, you can't feel that in your
No,
head.
of course not. And there would
Yeah.
never ever be a way to do that. So don't
Mhm.
use
Yes,
it for
so
that.
like
Use it for
try to
bowling.
set-
It works great for Wii bowling. Wii bowling was awesome.
Yeah, but so like you can't. You're not like you can't expect that. Is my point.
It sounds
you know?
like
Don't use the
you will
technology
settle-
for the things it's bad at.
Yeah.
You would settle for nothing less than Star Trek's holodeck. That's what's going on here.
Well, the Star Trek holodeck has a different problem. Where I would never leave there, and I would starve to death in there.
Well,
But
so this, maybe it's good that VR is kind of lame.
Problem?
yeah.
You sure?
I mean, I don't know. Mike would be also happy to find my dead body at a holodeck. I'm guessing, but anyway. But like, yeah, basically, the thing about virtual reality is that it does not compare to embodied reality and my own imagination. So why would I waste my money buying that stuff?
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
I've played around with VR headsets a little bit, and they're
And then, like,
uncomfortable and kind of
I get-
disorienting, and
I
they
get
don't have
really-
the gravity. So
I get motion sickness just watching people play original Doom. That insanely fast FPS. If I can't watch somebody else play it, I get motion sickness just watching somebody else play it. So like, why would I strap a monitor to my face and give myself motion sickness?
Why do you spend so
Yeah.
much time thinking about negative things that you can just never think about and be happier?
Because it's fun to complain about negative things. Mark, you do it all the time too. You just don't think of it as complaining. You say you're observing reality, but you sound like you're complaining.
You say so.
I'm very good at hearing people's voice, like the tone in people's voices. And when you make observations about reality,
No, you're
you
not.
sound like you are complaining. So, I'm
No,
sorry.
you're that is proof that you're actually not.
Okay, fine. Like now you're laughing at me that I heard that part. But when you get
Oh,
really
well, that's
annoyed-
good. I think everybody heard that. It was kind of obvious.
Yes,
But
that
that's
was
not-
obvious. Like
That's
you're
not
being-
proof that you could do anything else.
No, I'm very intuitively good at hearing people's voices. Trust me. You just haven't given me the chance to actually,
You're massively autistic, so by
Yes.
definition, you absolutely are not. But you keep thinking otherwise.
Uh-huh. Okay,
Hey,
fine.
Professor Luigi, excellent.
yeah, well, I was just putting him through a verification process, and most misbehaviors won't go through the verification process. So I think we're fine tonight.
Has he promised up his firstborn to get on the stream and stuff?
No, he just followed a simple procedure that made me more certain that he's not. I don't look. I allow people who don't have their webcams on to come on without a webcam if I know them. So
Excellent.
Dot is known to me. Kirk is known to me. Professor Luigi's commented a little bit, but there was people have faked their names before.
I'm less known. I understand.
So, Doc, what's going on? He's having a hard time unmuting himself.
What's up, Doc?
Oh
Want
man,
to talk to us now?
All right.
What-
so,
what-
hey,
what-
okay. Really sorry. Hello.
What are you a professor of?
Very little, actually. Unfortunately, I
Excellent.
used to. The artifact of this username was once upon a time I prided myself on obscure Nintendo knowledge, and that was probably over 20 years ago now. So,
Gasp! We
Best
could totally
doctorate
trivia
ever.
each other.
Best doctorate ever. I
it's hard to
approve.
monetize, but you're fun at game night.
Yes.
All doctorates are hard to monetize. It's
I was
fine.
gonna say, I think
But
I
we,
can't think of one.
Professor Luigi, we totally need to do the ritual where we shit test each other over obscure Nintendo knowledge and then become friends.
How about you do that
I'm-
on another stream and
Yes,
not
yes.
tonight?
Not tonight.
I'm
Not
rusty.
tonight.
I'm rusty on that.
That's fine. My Nintendo knowledge is terrible, so
I can't
will
tell
have a
you.
lot
I
of fun.
can't tell you Miyamoto fact from Iwata fact right now. It's been a while.
Not tonight, but some other time. We totally need to do that to each
I have
other,
a
for each other,
okay.
with each other.
for sure. I have a quick question, which may be too late in the stream to ask this.
Well, let's see what we can do.
So because we were talking about church unity over various forms of the liturgy, and I was thinking to myself, this is something I've been thinking about for a while, because there's that one Bishop Barron video that talks about where he's like talking about the national, he's giving a speech at the National Eucharistic Congress or something like that, where he says that 70% of Catholics don't believe in the real presence at the time of his speech, and I'm like, oh wait a second, how can there be that many Catholics that don't believe in the real presence, like of any sort? Not even like, oh, I'm not sure if it's really physical, or I'm not sure it's really transubstantiation. I'm not sure that Jesus is really present in any form. Or is the answer of not even just half of the Catholics, but 20% plus half Catholics. So I was thinking to myself, what role does belief play in being a Catholic? Because transubstantiation is, as I understand it, I guess coming from a Protestant background, this may be perhaps exaggerated, but like that's the pretty core part of being distinctively Catholic, is to believe in the real presence.
So that's not so that belief in the real presence, that's the really important thing right there. And
Yeah.
transubstantiation is the most precise language that we've come up to describe it with.
Okay.
So, there'd be lots of people. I mean, there'd be lots of, we'll say the 30% that would try and give you an explanation of transubstantiation and get it kind of wrong. But they're coming from a good place, and they really do believe in the real presence, and they understand that. And of the two, the belief in the real presence is the more important there. I think there's a few things going on with that number that you quoted. Sometimes I, as a priest who, is studying theology and all these sorts of things, look at the questions and the way that they're worded on these surveys, and I'm like, what is it? What is it that like they're trying? Which one of these is the correct answer? So sometimes even I get a little turned around on it.
Sure.
And I would love to talk to the Pew Research people or the Cara people and help them with their wording. I think they might be hanging out with too many Jesuits or something like that.
Okay.
So that's I do have a question about the methodology on that, but you had another question about the role of belief in being a Catholic.
Because I was thinking like what tends to unify Protestant denominations is Calvinists believe in they have Tulip and all the institutes, etc. Calvinists, all the confessions. Lutherans have their confessions. Even Baptists believe immersion, there's baptism, ordinances, and not sacraments, etc., etc. And so it's like what unites them is their belief. So what makes a Baptist a Baptist or a Calvinist is the thing that they believe.
Propositions that they state. That's
right.
the-
So here's where I think the Catholics end up being different, and we can use some tools from Thomas Aquinas to understand that. Is that belief or a belief is actually like a few different things that are going on there. There is the God whom we believe, right? So the person who's revealing. You have the grace by which we believe. So he, enlivens our will and intellect to assent to this. And then there are the articles or the material in which you believe, right? So it's if you put it into Latin, it's credo Deo, credo a Deo, and credo in Deum. For you Latin nerds out there, you can do that. And for the Catholic, the really important thing is actually the grace by which you believe, right? And like the principle on which your faith rests there. And the principle, and like even for, we'll say, with your uneducated Catholics, regardless of their intelligence, they don't avert to this very often. They would just have a kind of a default habit of, well, this is, I'm Catholic. We've got the Bible and the Catechism, and whatever the church teaches, that's what I want to be on board of, right? So even when they're getting it wrong, right, they're getting the faith in which they believe. If the principle of the faith by which they believe is sound, then they're a part of the club there. And I think that explains an awful lot of how the church operates. Very few people ever get excommunicated for heresy, and the ones that do are usually priests or university professors. People, and maybe we might get some influencers. I have a list, by the way. Yeah, so I think that's so we're less concerned about like the material cause of faith, we could say, but really more of the efficient and formal causes of faith in people.
And
so I think that might account for some of the difference there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I think it must be because I remember listening to. I mean, this is the Orthodox, and not the Catholics. But I was listening to Father Stephen DeYoung talk about like, if you go to coffee hour and after any, Sunday service, you'll probably, if you listen closely enough, you'll probably hear a good handful of heresies that people are just causing. And it's not. The point isn't necessarily that everybody believes precisely the correct thing, but at least that they submit to the church. Is it something like that?
Yes, that's a much simpler way of describing
I'm
what I
probably
just
oversimplifying.
No. It's all pointing at the same thing. I was just using some Thomas Aquinas tools because I'm a big fan of Thomas Aquinas here. I'm also a big fan of behaving rationally and abiding by the changings of times and seasons. And it's dark outside now, so I will be heading to bed here pretty soon. So. But thanks for coming on, everybody. Thanks for behaving yourselves, and good night, and God bless you all.
Good night, Father.